centers. As SMEunited, we've been invited to join in this project with the motivation that it would be very important to also have SMEs on board in the transition to sustainable mobility in city centers. And that was immediately something that attracted our attention, because we already got some comments from entrepreneurs on how they were experiencing low And I'm back again.
Yes, we lost you, so it might be useful to repeat everything you wanted.
Je suis d'accord qu'il réagissait pas.
I think we have some issues with Veronique's connection. Maybe we can jump to Ward, who will give us an introduction, and in the meantime, Veronique will reconnect.
Absolutely, it's a pleasure. Let me take over for now. I'm sure Veronique will reconnect.
I'm there again. I hope now, third time, it's okay, and I'm staying. I don't know what is happening. So we've been receiving already comments from entrepreneurs who were experiencing challenges due to low emission zones in different cities, and concerns that this could hamper the European single market. But apart from that, there's also, of course, the challenge for entrepreneurs to go into city centers and perform services, be able to park, be able to work where there's a pedestrian zone, be able to have an activity in the city center and be reachable for consumers who might not always be very mobile themselves. So those were all challenges that already were put forward at one moment by some of our members. And that's also why we were interested in contributing to the work that you are doing, and having a look together, one at best practices that already exist in different cities in Europe, and then also checking with small companies, with entrepreneurs, on what works well for them and where we can further adjust policy to make it feasible on both sides. So I'm very happy that today we have the cities joining, Aarhus, Le Havre, Mechelen, Leuven, and Rotterdam, to bring forward their best practices. And then I'm also hoping that we will have good interaction with the participants to give feedback on the challenges and the support measures that can help small companies to get fully on board. So I'll let you get started. Wart, I think you were already on it for your first presentation, and hope we will have exciting discussions today.
Thank you so much, Veronique. Thank you for the warm welcome. And yes, let's say a few words about the consortium. It's a very vital group, and happy to share a few words about the project, which is now more or less halfway. So what is GLEAM really about? Let me tell you a few things about that. Do I have control? Yeah, so really the core of GLEAM is to foster this transition towards a more green urban logistic system by contributing to policy improvements, but also making sure that all logistical parties can actually be part of that transition. And therefore we focus especially on small and medium enterprises. So it's a 3.5 year long project, and it all started from the realization that over the last few years we've seen many very innovative pilots in many cities. We've seen some exploratory research on how to bring this together, but we felt there's a need to come up with more systematic approach, policies that can really bring things together and also scale up this movement. And that's what the original idea for GLEAM. And we have translated that in a couple of core points of our project, in which we want to improve policy making, learn from each other, of course, and then particularly see how we can create also an environment where both the larger enterprises, so general cargo, parcel delivery companies, but also SMEs that are a very vital part of the urban logistics system can join that transition towards a just and green urban logistics system. So why such a focus on SMEs? Well, as many of you know, the logistics sector is responsible for quite a bit of the CO2 emissions, and of that group, we have simply a large and quite diverse group of SMEs that play a role. As I was just mentioning, it's not only about the big companies like DHL, but also, of course, about the many smaller entrepreneurs that are part of the vital ecosystem of the city. Think of service vehicles like window cleaners, think of fresh food delivery to restaurants, of course, waste collection, moving companies, and simply for having livable and well-functioning cities. All these parties are crucial. So it's important to include them in this transition, and of course that's also the very focus of today. At the same time, we notice that due to the fact that these companies are typically a bit smaller than the larger companies, they maybe also have less access to policy making, have less awareness sometimes, also less capacity to anticipate potential future development and experiment a bit, for instance, with the type of vehicles they are using. So what kind of policy instrument and incentives and maybe example projects are needed to showcase that it is also a viable future for them? And at the same time also to report back to policymakers what are key elements to keep a close look at to ensure that indeed these SMEs can join this transition. So the consortium is a varied mix of partners, which I think is very key for such kind of interdisciplinary research that we are doing here. Strong lag in practice with, I think, some great cities doing having ambitious programs when it comes to urban logistics. Very important, the business partners that we have here today, like SMEunited, and two knowledge partners. I'm part of Groningen University leading the project. So the problem analysis started with, okay, we see a lot of pilots, we see good initiatives, we see also ambitions at the policy level, but there is a clear lack of coherent policy frameworks. That's one thing. On the other thing, there is this limited capacity by SMEs. That's the other thing I already mentioned. And then, of course, all these partners have to work together in a multi-layered governance landscape. So how can we improve coordination? That's the third problem analysis point that we identified. So the project is working on all these things. So what is it really about? On the one hand, we have a strong focus on better understanding what's happening and how to get at grips with urban logistic flows and how data sources can be of help there. And sometimes that data can actually be quite basic, simply counting the number of vehicles. But there are, of course, also more advanced sources of information like camera systems that can track number plates and recognize and link that to particular cars. How to work with all the data, how to make that accessible, how to analyze that data properly. And what can we learn from that data then to understand which different segments of logistics do we have in our cities and how do they interact? So we really want to contribute to understanding the different data sources that are available, how to advance our capacity in working with that data. And by doing that, also provide practical guidelines to those working with that data. So I would like to put in the spotlight now briefly a newly released output from our site. This is a Very nice document, I think, that you should have a look at if you're interested, to see, okay, how can you effectively use the digital resources that are in cities available, how to start with getting a better understanding and with using data, what does it require from your organization, and how you can then slowly gear up to a more advanced system of monitoring, testing, with using different data sources. The second strong pillar of this project is, of course, to understand then the interaction between all these policy instruments. How can they effectively work together? And do we also see correlations between the policy motives, for instance, having less vehicles in the city, or having cleaner air, or having more public space, and the type of instruments that are selected? And then the key question every time in the back of our mind, and also explicitly in many of the project activities, is what does this mean for SMEs? And that's why I'm very happy that we also have this lunch seminar here today. So if you want to know more, please stay connected. Link to our project page. And now I think the floor is also to the other consortium members to share their insights from our project. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Ward. And we go to the first city who will present something, and that is Le Havre. I would therefore invite Le Havre to take control over Nicolas' screen and start the presentation. The floor is yours.
Ok, thank you. Je peux pas.
Avec la molette.
Je peux pas. I don't. Je peux pas me fier. I don't control the slides. Je dois refaire peut-être le.
Is there another slide next
Attends.
that we cannot? Okay.
Molette.
Yeah.
Ah, ok. Thank you. Thank you. Concerning traffic regulations, as we have already discussed in previous meetings, we technically have a low emission zone in place since January 1st, but it has not been enforced yet. That's because there is a bill in the French Parliament aiming to remove the obligation to set up low emission zones, and the debates are still ongoing. And in any case, even if the obligation stays, the low emission zone in Le Havre will start off with very few restrictions, basically just banning cars and light commercial vehicles registered before 1997. So it will only affect a small number of people. There are no time restrictions for driving in Le Havre city center, and it's not planned. Across the area, there are several traffic calm zones with 20 and 30 km/h limits designed to support local life, give priority to pedestrians and cyclists, and restrict through traffic in neighborhoods. We have pedestrian areas that are strictly closed to all traffic, except for emergency vehicles and local residents. Some pedestrian streets have retractable bollards at the entrances and exits. They can be opened either with a remote control or through registered licensed plates for authorized users like emergency services, residents, and shopkeepers, so they have 24/7 access. For deliveries and construction vehicles, access is only possible through the intercom approval from City Hall Security, and only between 7 and 11 in the morning. After that, they can't enter anymore and have to stop outside. Residents who hire a company can still use their badge to let them in.
Can we have the next slide, please?
Thank you. Regarding use of delivery areas, delivery areas can be used by anyone loading or unloading goods. And as long as there's no specific political decision on the matter, these spaces are not reserved exclusively for professionals. There is too much variation in the rules for using these delivery areas, especially regarding time. Some are reserved for deliveries 24/7, while others are shared with regular parking, usually reserved for deliveries only in the morning. This raises questions about afternoon deliveries when the spaces are often taken by residents or workers. And there's no official time limit for using a delivery area, but users must be actively loading or unloading and stay close to their vehicle. This can be a problem for companies or craftsmen who need to park for longer periods to carry out their work or make trips back and forth to fetch equipment. Next slide, please. Okay. There are about 14,000 paid parking spaces in the greater city center of Le Havre, divided into two zones: a short-term parking area in the commercial sector. This is the orange zone in the map, and the medium or long-term parking area in the residential sector. It's a green zone. The city of Le Havre has introduced a specific and tailored pricing scheme for professionals to park near their workplace or while carrying out their tasks. Professionals can choose a subscription for on-street parking or a parking lot of their choice. There are two types of subscriptions. For stationary professionals, this subscription allows any professional to park in the zone associated with their workplace. It's available for 1 month or 1 year. And for mobile professionals, this subscription allows a predefined list of professionals to park in any zone to carry out work, service, or care rounds. It's available for 1 week, 1 month, 1 quarter, or 1 year. Beneficiaries are professionals in construction and repair, service providers, medical professions, and home care assistance for vulnerable individuals. For comparison, a standard annual public parking subscription costs 260 euros. Rewards for professional, it's 260 euros. Parking is free for owners of 100% electric vehicles displaying the green sticker. The city can grant temporary use of public space for construction work or moving with a fee to be paid. Requests must be made 3 weeks in advance, which makes it difficult to manage urgent intervention or schedule changes. Le Havre Metropole has partnered with Shell to deploy electric vehicle charging infrastructure, providing comprehensive coverage to allow professionals using electric vehicles to complete their runs with ease. More than 320 chargers are already operational, with a target of over 500. Our action plan authorized doesn't specifically focus on the situations of SMEs and craftsmen, but some actions can be adapted to take their needs and challenges into account. Regarding delivery areas, we should propose to the elected officials to simplify the usage rules and consider extending certain time slots reserved for deliveries to cover the peak demand period. To limit illegal parking in these spaces, a delivery desk could be introduced, issued only to professionals with an authorized user list to be defined. We should also consider whether it would make sense to test dedicated parking spaces for craftsmen strategically located to serve the city center, which could help reduce the problems caused by long-term parking. We also aim to develop micro-logistics hubs to reduce the distance traveled by light commercial vehicles to the city center and to encourage last mile delivery using lighter modes, such as small electric vans or cargo bikes. It will be useful to explore how smaller actors like SMEs, craftsmen, local shops can be integrated into this micro-hub project. From the start, their specific needs could be identified through field surveys, participatory workshops, flow mapping, and constraints analysis. And more generally, regarding the development of cycle logistics, we will need to consider how to involve small businesses or hospitality and restaurant professionals, encouraging them to adopt this mode of delivery, potentially starting with a pilot phase in a small area. It should be noted that cycle logistic operators are mainly SMEs or micro enterprise. In general, from the moment we start planning the implementation of our actions, we will ensure that they are aligned with the GLEAM objectives and to take into account the interests of SMEs that we will have identified during our first city dialogue, which we are organizing next week. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and very interesting presentation. I would invite the guests to ask questions or have further remarks on your presentation. I see we have also some people from France, so if some people with the French with understanding of the French situation want to highlight something or say something, they're invited. I see somebody from SME, but also, of course, everybody else who has some remarks on the presentation of Le Havre. I see Wart, so go ahead, Wart.
Yeah, just a question for clarification, because you kindly explained also the kind of measures that are in place, but also the struggles that you're still facing, which I think all of us can recognize, right? And then at the end, you mentioned this city dialogue that is coming up. Could you say a few words on how you were able to, or which strategy you used at least, to target a broad group of SMEs to make sure that you have a representative group during this meeting? What kind of strategies did you use?
As I know, for the moment, la rencontre avec les PME, elle n'a pas encore été faite.
Non,
for now, the meeting has not been established yet. Et en fait, c'est la stratégie pour annoncer le plus d'entreprises, en fait. Est-ce que
on a mobilisé les chambres consulaires.
They contacted the Chamber of Commerce and
the Chamber of Trades and Crafts
to have like a contact who can also at their turn contact SMEs and craftsmen in order to have a potential of different people at this meeting, but it's next week. So est-ce que tu sais combien de...
Non, pour moi, c'est pas les participants.
But we don't know how many people will be there.
But nevertheless, very interesting, because you point at the very important role of these intermediary organizations in making sure that we get different actors involved.
But as we're like sure of it, we already have meetings planned with represents groups that represent SMEs.
Par exemple, la Confédération des artisans du bâtiment.
Like Confederation of I don't know how to translate.
Construction artisans.
Yeah.
The Chamber of Trades and Crafts. Okay. C'est-à-dire que on cible les entreprises de construction et de services.
They mainly target construction tu m'as dit quoi?
Et de services.
And services SMEs. Since they're like
Cleaning companies, electricians, plumbers.
I feel like they're the largest group of SMEs in the area, so.
Okay. Thank you.
Someone else having a question.
Yeah, I see Marco de Joya's hand is also raised. Marco, the floor is yours. Maybe briefly introduce yourself and then.
Yes. Thank you, Fabian. My name is Marco de Joya. I represent the European Road Hauliers Association. And actually, I wonder, elaborating on the previous comment, whether in terms of engaging or reaching out to sectoral players and stakeholders, you had a chance to reach out to OTRE or UNOTRA, which are the two main, they are members of our association, so they represent Road Hauliers Association at the national level in France, so road transport companies, whether you had a chance to do so. And if not, if there is any follow-up in terms of consultation process, I will be happy to share via Fabian their contact details for for implementing robust solutions on goods delivery at the urban level. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Marco. And if there are no further follow-up questions, I think we can go to Mechelen. And I would give the floor to Mechelen and ask them to take over the screen of Nicolo.
And how do I take over the screen?
There should be next to him, should be Nicolo Buck's screen, and then there should be a circle with 3 dots. And if you click on the circle with the 3 dots, there should be the option to take over his screen.
Let me see.
I sent you an invitation and maybe you received it.
Yeah, I see it, and I must say I stranded in the railway station of Leuven. It's a bit noisy. I'm very sorry for the noise of the trains. So sorry. I don't see it, but can I just say press next slide, Nicolo? That will make it easier. Okay. I'm going to tell you about the city of Mechelen. Central in Belgium, and I will wait for this cargo train to leave before I continue.
It's quite okay, Rose. There's no really background noise.
Oh, really? Wow.
So, okay.
That's amazing because it's really noisy. Anyway, I wanted to tell you about the different access regulations that Mechelen has introduced. We have time windows in our historic center between 11 and 6. It's a car-free zone unless you have a permit to enter. We have a cycling zone, which means that all cars entering the inner city should stay behind cyclists. They cannot overtake them. We have traffic cuts. We have stricter parking rules. And we don't have a low emission zone. There were once studies carried out to see whether a zone would be interesting or not, but so far we have none. Nevertheless, the city is moving towards greener logistics. You can go to the next slide, Nicole. The measures I just mentioned, they are evidently impacting SMEs. The deliveries are restricted, costs, increase, and time pressure is a reality. Accessibility is also reduced. So small businesses in particular have fewer resources to adapt in comparison to larger firms. Next slide, please. But I hope we can also see that there are opportunities. SMEs can use sustainability as a selling point. They can collaborate or partner with logistics hubs for efficient deliveries. And they can appeal to customers who prefer eco-friendly businesses. So they could tell a story around it. Next slide, please. 3 concrete examples. A retailer in the city center can only receive deliveries in the morning because of our access rules. So it takes some planning. A construction SME needs permits to access restricted areas, which gives an extra administrative burden on these small companies. And the same goes for restaurants. They have to be creative, and if possible, they can switch to bike deliveries or work together with a hub. Next slide, please. What have we done in the past to somehow support SMEs? We have given a subsidy for cargo bikes for entrepreneurs in the inner city, and it was quite a substantial subsidy. So it really made a difference. We had a trial in one of our European projects where the Cambio car sharing, the biggest one in Belgium, was offered to entrepreneurs free of charge to see how they could, how to say, some people are not delivered by external companies, but they go and get their stock themselves. So maybe they could make use of electric cars, not their own, but from the car sharing company. As a city, we've always tried to set up a city hub where the transshipment point could be organized, and where the last mile would then be done by an external cargo bike company. And we would also promote the use of SME boxes so that SMEs could stock their products in the city hub and then ask for on-demand deliveries. And evidently we have rolled out a whole locker network for first mile shipments, not only last mile. So for entrepreneurs in the inner city to send their the parcels to the consumers. And then lastly, we also had a project from the Flemish department where we were able to give retailers and entrepreneurs the opportunity to test different e-vehicles. So e-trucks, e-vans, e-cargo bikes. So they could test what is really needed, or what do I need, and what is the experience with different vehicles. Next slide, please. And that's also the last slide. So in conclusion, the regulations that we have imposed, they obviously do improve the quality of life for the Mechelen citizens, but we are aware that SMEs feel the burden most. And we think that the solution is finding a balance, combining restrictions with, on the other hand, targeted support. And with that support, we can help SMEs transform challenges into opportunities, ideally. And then to add to that, I think SMEs need from us as a city clear rules and a long-term vision, from us as a local government. That's it.
Thank you very much. And also thank you for taking the effort to do it from a train station. Really fitting for a discussion on mobility. And again, I would just invite the participants to ask questions, make remarks. I see we have some people from Flanders here as well. So of course, you guys are especially invited, but everybody else, if you have something on the presentation from Mechelen and from Roos, please feel free to take the floor. And yeah. I see Ward is again raising his hand. Again, feel free to take the floor, Ward.
Please, I don't want to take the opportunity of others, but but if I do have a question actually, because I think your final call was really spot on, right? If we want many other actors, in this case SMEs, to join this long-term change, it takes a few years, right, to make such a transition. Then you also need the long-term vision and clear rules. And I wonder, could you say a few words about how the pilots, the subsidy, bringing people together contribute to create a kind of public support for such long-term vision?
I'm not sure if public support is what we need most. I think what we need most is political support. So I think what this project does is create extra awareness for our politicians to make this a priority. And since Flanders or the Flemish region is not very much taking the lead, it's up to the cities. And so no politician or not many are willing to take the first step. So they look at each other, and yeah, this project helps to keep the matter on the agenda, is what I think.
Thanks, super clear.
Maybe also because we talked about it earlier, you had, don't know if you can understand this because I see literally a train driving behind you, Rose, but you had a first city dialogue already. Do you you have something more to add on that?
Yeah, we have decided in GLEAM to focus on construction logistics. So the SMEs in the construction sector, how are they keeping up with our access regulations? What are their needs? What are their complaints? And so the first city dialogue was literally going to a gathering where all these SMEs were united and ask them, hey, we are the city of Leuven and Mechelen. Could you tell us what is your reality? Because we don't always know. So please tell us. So that was a first gathering where we got insights. And we will build further on the information that we retrieved and see how we can help them as practical as possible. So that's for the coming months for us to keep working on.
Thank you, Rose. I would then again ask somebody has some questions or remarks or has something else to add on what was said. And I see Vasco de Mello. Maybe introduce yourself and
Thank you. Thank you. Vice President of the Portuguese Retail and Common Service Confederation. I'm coming from Lisbon. My question is very simple. If there is no public aids, the burden for SMEs will be very, very hard, isn't it? Thank you.
Yes, probably. That's what we are doing, and we hope to make a difference. We agree.
Okay. Thank you, Rose, and thank you, Vasco,
Thank you.
for the question. And if there are no further remarks by the group, I would go to the next Flemish city, which is Leuven, and I would ask Marais to take over Nicolo's presentation, if possible, and continue with the presentation.
Okay, thanks. Let's try to go to the next slide. So what Roos explained for Mechelen is actually also the case for Leuven, so I'm not going to repeat all the regulations that we've set in place. It's more or less the same. The layout of our cities is similar as well. We're only a 30-minute train ride in distance, if all goes well. So it's a medieval city center with a circulation plan, and then the same regulations more or less as in Mechelen. So in my slides, I wanted to focus more on two target groups that might consider logistics as a burden because it's not their main focus. So I'll present some examples of how we are as a city are supporting our local shops, the micro entrepreneurs, and also the plans for better support of our service logistics SMEs, because their main activity is not driving around and delivering and picking up goods, but actually doing something useful to renovate a house or to fix something. And then the shopkeepers, well, they are focused, they're micro entrepreneurs, they're focused on their small shops, and they are like, they have to do everything. So that's why we decided with the economy and trade department and with the mobility department, I work with the mobility department, to set up some platforms or projects to support them. So we have a dense network of parcel lockers. It's the same network as in Mechelen. And it's used for, it's mainly used by citizens, but also by our local shops for their first mile. So they can send their parcels, which have been ordered online by using this parcel lockers. And it's a lower cost. Yeah. And then adding to that, we've set up the We Deliver platform. It's a digital distribution platform for consolidated and zero emission pickups of their e-commerce parcels. So whatever has been ordered online by their customers is picked up in a consolidated round by a logistics service provider, by cargo bike or in an e-van. And that means that, yeah, the community of local shops that are registered at the We Deliver platform, that they pay a lower price because they can benefit from the volume of the entire community. So they pay a lower price per pickup. They can benefit from the high service level because we did as the city did research on a high quality logistics service provider that also offered zero emission transport. And we unburden the local shopkeepers from the logistic process, which is not their main focus, by centrally organizing the shipping. And there's also a branding part for the community of shopkeepers. And obviously it means less traffic in shopping streets. So it's a more peaceful street. And then another platform that we did in the project is a smart city logistics registration platform for deliveries. So whoever delivers in the city can register the address of the delivery, so the delivery address, and immediately get the regulations that for that specific address. So can you enter the zone on the time that you plan your delivery, and if you cannot enter by motorized vehicle, can you enter by cargo bike, for example? So we do some nudging as well. It's a project, and we only did a small pilot with it, and it has its limits because you have to plan beforehand and register all the deliveries in the platform, and it's time consuming. But we did get positive feedback on the fact that you get feedback on that you can get to know the regulations for your specific address instead of having to go to a city website and read all the regulations and then try to see, oh, probably for my delivery zone, it's probably this regulation. So they were sure that what the regulations were for their delivery address. So these are some examples of platforms that we've set up to burden the actors in city logistics, mainly focused on the local shops. On the next slide, it's well, there's a lot of text, but also some nice pictures. The pictures are from the event, from the first city dialogue that Roos from Mechelen and I went to in June. So it was probably the warmest summer evening in Belgium. We were there to present, well, to ask them what is your experience in when you come and work in the city center. And we did a survey as well with a Mentimeter. Some results here. So they obviously, we knew that before, and the service and construction companies that were present there admitted that the administration to get access to restricted areas is too time consuming. Their biggest challenges are parking permits and access rules. That's not a surprise either. When we asked them where they would like to find information on access and parking rules, they said, their preference was a central national platform based on the service address, so similar to the project we did in Leuven, but then on a national database. Then digital signs in the city, and then the city website. That was their top 3. They also complained about the fragmentation. Every city has its own data standards and regulations and exemptions, so that's hard to work with if you're active in several cities. And 1 out of 3 service companies say that they avoid the city center due to access regulations and limited parking space. So we think that the current regulations are not really designed with service logistics in mind, and maybe the biggest challenge are the last minute interventions in the city center. So GLEAM is about just and green logistics, but I think if we look at the as is situation, that it's not even just for SMEs, and that we should focus on getting the basics of just logistics and just information, just access right before we move towards green logistics. Could be a combination, obviously, but this is the strategy that we would like to follow. Next slide, please. So when we talk about moving from just to green logistics in Leuven, there are some action points that we got from that are based on the survey and the conversations we had during the first city dialogue. So better disclosure of information on access regulations and parking rules. Short term, that will be reorganizing the city website, but then we are also starting a new, or would like to, we submitted a new subsidy project to get these national data standards right, and to have to have this national database in which you can enter the delivery address and then know what the regulations are. And this should save time and cost for SMEs, because they don't have this full-time equivalent doing all the work on regulations and paying the fines and whatever. It's just the one person working in the company, or somebody of the 1 to 4 employees that has to do this apart from other so many tasks. There's we will also like to simplify the administration process so that it's more designed for last-minute services in restricted areas. That will support our citizens, because it's difficult for them to get service logistics companies in, but it will also serve the service companies, which are SMEs, and the local entrepreneurs. Like they have a restaurant, and if something doesn't work there, they cannot do their business either. And then there's a green procurement part to support local SMEs in service and construction logistics, so that they could have a better position when competing for public tenders. And we might have a use case with special exemption for restricted zones. For example, if you offer a consolidated service in the city, so for example, different households, so you do this in one afternoon, and then we can facilitate this because it's actually a consolidated round as well. And next slide. So we understood during the city dialogue, the city dialogues are key, so we will continue to do this with Bouw Unie, who represents the SMEs in service and construction logistics. We will have another survey and we'll present some inspiration best practices on a bigger event next year, so that we slowly move towards a more just and green logistics for SMEs in our cities. Yeah, and that's all. Any questions?
Thank you very much, Marij. And indeed, if anybody has any questions, please feel free to take the floor. I have a small question. You mentioned this platform. Can you estimate or say how many companies were using it, or
the distribution platform, the We Deliver platform for local shops? Yeah, we had like 100 users, but they weren't all active at the same time. So I think from Black Friday until Christmas time, we had a good volume of parcels, but the rest of the year is still not. The volume is not high enough to make it sustainable. So it's still a subsidy project. So we need to get this volume higher.
I also see now 2 questions or 2 hands raised. I would give the floor first to Philip van Nieuwenhuizen. Feel free to introduce yourself.
Yes, thank you. Philip van Nieuwenhuizen. I'm Policy Vice President on Sectoral Matters of SMEunited, and also very interested in public procurement, since I'm also president of a Dutch consultant organization on public procurement. And that is right away my question. If you have the impression that in the green public procurement on which you want to stimulate zero emission, if you see a difference in participation of SMEs compared to the more traditional public procurement procedures, because the greener, the more complicated the participation of these SMEs is our impression. And the European Court of Auditors also saw that the participation of SMEs is lagging behind and decreasing. So just wondering if you see a difference in the participation if you do the green public procurement.
Yeah, so before we actually do the green public procurement, we will talk to some CEOs of the SMEs we've met at the City Dialogue. One of the CEOs came to us to tell us that they have they are not taken serious as a competitor, and yeah, they wanted to know whether green procurement, so the could be the answer. For example, they are local SMEs, so they're closer to the city, which means that they will do less kilometers to get their materials and their personnel into the city, and they wanted to see whether that could be one of the criteria of the tenders. It's just one of the examples, but we are going to start this dialogue on green procurement with three CEOs. In the coming months. So we haven't implemented it yet, and it will take time. I think it's a difficult timing now because you said this green procurement could be more complex and maybe more expensive. But on the other hand, the SMEs say that they have this, they are smaller SMEs with a specific quality or a specific focus. So they think the quality of their work could be better than the big companies that are the usual suspects in these tenders. So it's just one of the discussions we will have to start, but with the CEOs, not just trying to draft something on our own.
Glad to hear that you include them in your policy change. So this may, in fact, turn out positive. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Philip, and thank you, Mireille. And I see Vasco have raised his hand. So Vasco, please feel free to take the floor.
Thank you. And thank you for your very good presentation. I have one question about the platform. You said that the SMEs retail SMEs cannot support fully the platform. If they cannot in the future, if they didn't grow their sales through this channel, the municipality will continue to support the platform in the future?
Yeah, good
Thank
question. And this is actually the discussion of the month, let's say. So it's unclear whether we will keep on supporting the platform if we don't find another subsidy project for it. The idea was to have it more like a general logistic platform, not only for parcels of local retailers, but to have it more like a local distribution platform for anything that should go from point A to B. But that hasn't worked out yet, and I think we're running out of time or out of budget with the current subsidy project, but that could have saved us. Yeah, good point.
Thank you, Marij.
And maybe, yeah, I can
Ah.
add to this that maybe it's not the city that should have this platform, but the local commercial logistics service provider could take over the system and offer it as a platform to enter the transport demands in the local city.
Okay.
Sorry,
Laszlo?
that raised me two questions. If the platform is too successful, are you afraid that the SMEs that are based in the city center will go out of the city center because they have a lot of costs, and going to make their sieges or their office in the other places? And regarding your last phrase, you said, if we don't have public finance, you should have private finance. But private finance is increasing costs to SMEs, isn't it? Thank you.
Yes, but it's a platform to attract new businesses. So if the city promotes the platform, yeah, it already exists. Then yeah, the bill is split between the public and private. So it does make sense to to do research on how they can take over this system. And then if local SMEs are going away from the city, that's a very complex discussion. I don't think it's only due to logistics.
Thank you, Marij. And indeed, it's a complex matter. Also part to the urban access vehicle regulations or restrictions. And the next presentation will be from our colleagues from Denmark, from Aarhus. And I'm happy to give them the floor, and please try to take over Nicolo's screen. Otherwise, I think he will assist you.
Okay, there we go. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, I'm hoping that it will go well because my connection is quite bad, but we'll hope for the best. Well, the topic today was facilitating SMEs access to cities with urban access regulations. But since we don't have these urban access regulations yet, we have decided to round out the topic and say how we facilitated a community dialogue about the Green Mobility Plan. And the Green Mobility Plan is a lot of deliverances and projects where the urban access regulations is among one of them. So that's why we thought it could be relevant for you to see this. We had a lot of discussions on how to do this dialogue. Since first the politicians said that it needed to be very long and thorough, and then they said it should be short, and then they said a lot of things. So we ended up using much more time planning it than actually doing it. So we had eight weeks of community dialogue with 13 meetings altogether. 155 different parties were invited, and different companies, etc. And 85 of them participated. And in Aarhus, we have divided the city in like kind of local areas where there's groups that we have meetings with a few times a year, and 23 out of 37 of these local areas participated in this as well. That led us to 109 pages with notes and one large report where we also included like you call it like professional enlightenments of it all, not just people saying. Yeah, and then we added this to the agreement on Green Mobility Plan. The framework for the community dialogue was the political basis, where we said that if we want a completely new green mobility system, and we have to change this as much as the politicians hope to, then we need to be very close with the community, with the municipality, the businesses, the citizens, etc. So it's based on the direction set out in the agreement. So we're not talking about what is going to happen, but we're talking about how it's going to happen and how we can make sure that the businesses and citizens, etc., that they can still access the city and then they don't run out of business. And the dialogue was broad in scope, so it wasn't only SMEs, it was also big companies, it was citizens, etc. And there was a lot of dialogue about the concrete implementation. And the politicians told us it should be broad in scope, so that's what we focused on. And it should also, as I mentioned before, based on the direction set out in the agreement. It was in autumn 2024 where we started the dialogue. And we started mapping out the stakeholders to precise about who should be invited in the dialogue. Then we, based on this stakeholder mapping, we invited a lot of people. As we had identified, we identified a lot of citizens, not the citizens themselves, but the local areas that I mentioned before, etc. And then we have different professionals, the city and the shops and a lot of other things. And we also focused on transportations of people working in the different companies. And then we had a lot of associations, see to the right. And based on this, we constructed this structured workshop concept, where we invited a lot of people, targeted the invitation to a selected stakeholder group. And then we had this pre-meeting alignment with experimentations, so to make sure that we didn't that it didn't end out badly. Like if you say that, okay, let's have a dialogue about this, and they think, okay, we can have a dialogue about it all. So we spent quite some time on like saying that, well, we can have a dialogue on this and this and this, because this and this is going to happen. So we shouldn't have the dialogue about that. And that was actually quite well, and it was good that we focused so much about that, so we didn't give them false expectations. And then we had the meeting based on a very structured workshop concept that some professionals did for us, and then we had summaries of all the input and put them together in a big note. So the invitation was here, and then we had the alignment of expectation based on a survey, and then we had the meeting, and then we had the summary of the meetings that we took all together. Sorry, I can see a lot of pictures are missing here. It is a scalable concept, so some meetings were very large and were held at the City Hall with the mayor on board. And then we also had some smaller meetings in-house or out in the city with all participants at one table. Before this and also after this, we've had a like ongoing meeting with different participants, and sometimes when we're at these meetings, they kind of only see it from their point of view. But having the meetings with all participants at one table made them understand each other's point of views, and that was actually they have been talking a lot about that since, saying that, oh, I would like this, but I know that, for instance, I had a meeting with some taxi companies in regards to the GLEAM project, and they all said that oh, it was, I would say that you should do like this and this, but since I've been to this other meeting, then I know that it wouldn't be good for the bicycling. So we should do something different. So it was very good to have this, all participant roundtable.
Just a quick interruption. Nicolo, could you go to the next slides? Because I think
sorry, I didn't change.
no, it was still the first one. That's
I don't know why I can't. That's strange. Well, I'm quite far ahead. Sorry.
no worries.
Well, yes. Yeah, this is the page where you didn't see all the pictures, but well, in this you actually do, so that's good. That's where I came to. So after this, like the people helping us were very structured. I would never have done this on my own, so that's perfect that they did that. So all the summaries, they divided them into themes, and also divided them into, was it citizens, was it companies, was it organizations, or however was it, and brought down the insights and took that in the report. Those 109 pages. So yeah, and I'm just, well, you didn't see this before when I said it, so yeah, I'm just summarizing. It was 8 weeks, 155 different parties were invited, and 85 participated. We had 13 meetings, and 23 of the 37 local areas. We had everything ended up with 109 pages of notes that were delivered to the politicians. And it's my impression that most of the politicians actually read it. So yeah, it was quite something. The next steps, because this ended last year, and then the next steps is the ongoing implementation, where we of course have a lot of dialogue as well, and a lot of communication. And it's very important to say that, that we have public consultation, we have targeted communication, and we have the broad communication. And within the targeted communication and the public consultation, we have, due to GLEAM, we have been able to have an even bigger focus on the SMEs than we could have had. So we're very grateful to be part of the GLEAM project. So, well, what was important in this broad dialogue? Well, defining the dialogue and like finding all the stakeholders, and really taking time to find all the stakeholders and framing the dialogue is very crucial. The dialogue meetings we're having now with SMEs within the logistics business and also the taxi business, which are two of our areas of focus, is the framing is very crucial, because if we don't frame it, then they're eager to just discuss everything and say that everything should be off the table. But framing it helps the dialogue on track, and making sure that the dialogue is actually useful for us. So, because if they just say, oh, nothing can be done, then, and we can't say that to the politicians, but if they're constructive, then we can actually use it for something. And then a clear plan for activating input is essential. Sign off the stakeholder list is also important. After the dialogue, we found out that some stakeholders were not on the list. For instance, cultural life in Aarhus. We later found out that they would actually very much like to be a big part of it, and they are kind of SMEs as well. And then also create a presentation template to make sure that it's consistent throughout the meetings. And then the logical, it takes time to create all this, but I know you all know that. So that was from us.
Thank you very much for this detailed overview on your community dialogue and the outcomes of it. just to clarify, the one outcome will be this an urban vehicle access regulation, if I understood that correctly, or is it in a different setup? Because you mentioned it will be in the future.
Yeah, sorry.
One outcome of this dialogue will be some kind of urban vehicle access regulation, or will that be something in a different setup, or come from a different setup?
Well, we're thinking it's going to be a part of this setup, but it's well, we have election very soon, so the politicians are not as certain as they used to be.
Okay. I think that's a common theme here amongst the cities. And I would like to ask the room again if there are any questions or remarks on the presentation of this kind of dialogue setup. And yeah, floor is open for anybody to make remarks or ask something. I see Ward. Yeah, Ward, please take the floor.
Very brief question. So do you have any tips to create a kind of structural involvement of the impressive amount of people that you now have been able to reach by these dialogues? So a kind of long-term involvement. Any tips for that?
No, it was brief and very time consuming, I think. And I think the tip is to to structuralize it and to take time to find out the stakeholders, definitely, and really spend a lot of time on that, because finding out that you miss a few is very, quite sad when you're in the end of the process. And then, you make sure you design the, in order to save some time, make sure you structuralize it so that, of course, you can't use exactly the same questions in the dialogue, but you can use more or less the same presentation, just like how do you say it, pinpointed a little to the left or to the right, depending on which stakeholders it is. And then here GDPR is kind of annoying, but when you have had the contact with the stakeholders, then ask if you can have them on like a mailing list or something like this, because being able to, like for instance, the other day we had politicians asking a question, and then because of some of the, well, actually also some of the networks we've had within GLEAM, I was able to just send out a very 2-sentence mail, and then I got reply from half of them within a few hours. So it's because we've built up this trust among them. So that was very good. So yeah, structure, I think, is the tip. Not a great tip, but a tip.
Okay. Thank you. Well, do you have further questions, or then I would give the floor to Michael, who also raised his hand. Please introduce yourself and.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I'm Mike Brown. I'm from the University of Gothenburg, so I'm working with Jon Williamson, and I'm working a lot with the partnerships in urban freight context. So I really enjoyed hearing all the presentations, but the last one I enjoyed a lot as well. And I just had a very short question. It was like, when you've collected such a rich amount of information, and as you say, 109 pages goes to the politicians, and we hope they read them carefully and so on. But how will you follow up with the people who were the participants in the exercise? Do you have a plan to go back to them with the outcomes, to engage them again, so it becomes almost like a longitudinal, not study, but a longitudinal way of working with people over time? What happens next when you go back to them, or will you not go back to them?
Yes and no.
Yes.
We don't. Well, that was the short one. Yeah. No, we don't go back in the same format as we did this time, but we've used this as kind of a platform for defining a few networks, so that we we will go back to them as another network, kind of, and then we can some of them has in other networks actually facilitated by Tina and Mette, who are also working here in Aarhus. Networks where they've come with the recommendations that were delivered to the mayor and to some of the top the other top politicians, so that it's easy for us to say that, like, whenever we try to get new policies approved, then we can say, well, this network, they have recommended that we should do this and this, and then it's easier for them to kind of sign off on it. Then it has the political capacity that it needs. Whereas if we just said, oh, we think this would be good for these kind of stakeholders, then it wouldn't be as valid. So I think we use it for that, and then but we don't have a plan on, like, one-to-one going back to them and saying, okay, this was taken and this was not. But of course we'll use it, and we'll go back to it ourselves. And the project leaders, like we have in this green mobility plan, we have more than 52 kind of projects consisting of various levels, like deliveries. So the project leaders have been informed of what was said on their different projects, so they can use it. Yeah.
No, that's great. I mean, it's interesting to think of how you have a kind of collective memory of what has been captured and what you then can do differently, and how things will change in the future. And just having that to be able to go back to people for the next stage is obviously valuable, because it's a kind of resource that can evaporate if you just leave it on a shelf. But if you have it within what people are doing something with it, then I think that's obviously very valuable. So it's really interesting, though. So thank you.
You're welcome. But I think it's also worth mentioning that it goes, like, it gets outdated quite easily. The recommendations I mentioned before was climate neutral logistics, which they worked on recommendations for almost 3 years, and they handed them into the mayor and other top politicians. And then 1 year later, they were like, and we used them. We really used them actively to make sure to implement some of the policies that they recommended. But already now we're like 1.5 years later, we're kind of updating the recommendations, because, like, electricity, it was the electricity world is going so fast, so they needed to be updated. But we have the platform for it, so now this time it won't take 3 years. Now it might only take 1 year to facilitate the update. So yeah, I think it's very much concerned to trust. Like, if they understand, you don't do it just because you have to, but you actually listen to them, and you're interested in what they're saying, then they trust you more. And then I think that's very important, to show interest, and to also to go out and like to visit them, and to I've visited some of the companies and driven with them in their trucks, and to see how it's being done there. So and that has really given us a good platform for trust building.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you very much. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much also for the presentation on Aarhus, and for those insights on building, let's say, collective, or a collective build-up for further developments on greening or sustainable logistics in the inner city. And with that, I would go to the last city that will present today, which is also, I believe, the biggest city that we have here today. It's the city of Rotterdam. And I'm looking forward to their presentation. I hope you can take access of Nicolo's screen, or control of Nicolo's screen. If not, I think Nicolo will also assist you in skipping these slides.
Okay, thank you, Fabian. Well, this is Karin and Tim from, we have control, from Rotterdam. Here to talk about our urban vehicle access regulations, our zero emission zone. I think I control the screen. I don't know how to go to the next one. There it is. Our zero emission zone, which is our main measure to accomplish this green and just transition. And now the main question of this meeting: how do we incorporate the needs of SMEs into this our policy making? Because at first we started this program, this project about 11, 12 years ago. We had this vision: we want clean and just green urban logistics, and our main measure would be a zero emission zone. So the first years we focused on helping front runners, which could be large companies, which could be small companies, really innovate and set the first small steps into the future. But in the last few years, that kind of changed. The front runners were gaining some traction, and we noticed that there were a lot of smaller businesses who were kind of lagging behind in knowledge and in making this transition. So our policies shifted more towards them. And also in the last, well, let's say 1.5 years, political interest also shifted to these small companies, because it's a huge transition, and can they get along in this? So one of the things that helped us achieve this or going into this transition is the regulation, because then you put a point on the horizon and say, this is where we want to go. This is the zero emission zone. It's going to be here. These are the boundaries. These are the access regulations. So you kind of force some change. And you cannot force things upon people without helping them in some way. So that has been our main focus of our policy in the last few years. Communication, like communicating what is going on, what entrepreneurs need to do, and supporting them in making this change. And we kind of shifted away from doing pilots and subsidies. So we did those a couple of years ago, but in hindsight, some of them are very successful, and some of the projects are not so successful, went bankrupt, were too early started in the transition to make it on their own. So that made it difficult for a lot of companies, especially the way we do it. We don't want to say this is how you should do it. We just want, we believe in building the capacity in these small, especially small companies, to have their own way of dealing with this transition and their own way of doing business, and just to build capacity so they can take on this transition. And because it's very difficult for them, especially when you have a one-man business, you're running your own business, you're also a fleet manager for the vehicle you're driving, you're an accountant for the financial side, and you're a lawyer who should keep track of all the laws and things you should adhere to. So that's a lot of things to deal with when you're a small business owner. So that's why we try to help them where we can. And it first starts with this access regulations, making clear as to what is coming. And it's not just in Rotterdam. Let's see if I can go to the next slide. Here it is. It's not just in Rotterdam. We harmonized all the access regulations over all the cities that are implementing a zero emission zone. In our climate agreement, we said 30 to 40 cities should implement such a zone. And so far there are 29 cities that have announced a zone like this. And by the start of this year, 13 have started, and a couple of more have joined in the months afterwards. And we all try to harmonize it. So if one entrepreneur is located halfway between Amsterdam, Rotterdam, and The Hague, he has to, all the access regulations in all the cities are the same. So there's really only one thing he should find out, and that's what is the general access regulation. And that's the way we try to make it a little bit easier for them. Because there are a lot of transitional schemes also, so everyone can set their own pace. And the first step is getting rid of the most polluting old vehicles, the emission class 4, that's the Euro 4 emission for the vans, and lower than emission class 6, Euro 6 for trucks. And over the next few years, each step, we get rid of the most polluting class of vehicles until 2030, where there will be only emission-free vehicles entering the cities. And already one thing has shifted in this. The Euro 6 vans, we are in the process of postponing these tightening of the access regulations from 2028 to 2029. And that was due to political concerns, mostly about SMEs. This requires a change in national law, so it still has to be implemented, but we're already letting people know that this is coming. And one of the most important things we should always keep an eye on who cannot make it or adhere to the rules for any reason. For example, when their economic situation of the business is so bad that they cannot invest in a new vehicle. So for the Rotterdam area, we already have in 1 year 112 exemptions due to their economic circumstances, and 49 exemptions due to unforeseen other personal circumstances. For example, when someone's pension is only 1 or 2 years away, you're not going to invest in a new vehicle. So we give them an exemption for 1 or 2 years. And by taking this approach, we now see that 99% of the vehicles driving into Rotterdam are allowed to enter the city. So I think that's a huge success, because over a whole year, about 250,000 individual vehicles enter our city. So if 99% can already adhere to the rules, that's quite a success. And well, as we already saw in the previous presentations, the new regulations also provide new opportunities. For example, this is one street who all wanted to switch to one waste collector. There were about 7 or 8 different companies collecting waste, 7 or 8 trucks going through the street every day. And now they joined forces, and now there's only one small vehicle who's also, recycling a lot of those waste streams. So it's really a circular transition and a sustainable transition. It's kind of combining both worlds, which I think it's a great example of what entrepreneurs can do by themselves, just by joining forces with each other. Then the role of SMEs in our national implementation agenda. There's a specific article about SMEs that we should, business associations, industry associations, interest groups, as well as municipalities should support the SMEs in making this transition by sharing this knowledge and providing this information. So that's kind of what we focus on. And also we have a local covenant where a local SMEs branch, MKB Rotterdam Rijnmond, has joined, and they also have put on 3 actions to make sure that their members are aware of what's going on and they are supported in making this transition. So that's how everyone has a specific role in this transition, and that's how you can fill it in. And now, of course, this meeting is hosted by SMEunited. What could be the role of SMEunited? Well, there's one international thing we are kind of, which is kind of becoming a problem, or at least it's regarded as a problem. We don't know how big the problem is. And that's that foreign vehicles, we cannot enforce foreign vehicles automatically, because the Dutch license plate system, we can automatically see the emission standard of the vehicle. It's open data, but we're really the only country who has that. So for every Polish, Spanish, French driver who's driving into the city, we don't know if they're allowed into the city. So opening up these vehicle registration databases through the EUCARIS system, there's a European system for that. That could be a great benefit for implementing these zones and for making this a just transition, because it's seen by some political parties as not being just that foreign vehicles can enter the city without being enforced, and we're forcing these regulations on our own entrepreneurs. So this is on our Dutch entrepreneurs. So that's kind of would be a nice next step to have. Well, there's a lot of things going on. So are there any things you would like to know more about, or we can elaborate more on?
I see a hand raised by Philip van Nieuwenhuizen.
Yes, thank you. You more or less answered already the question I wanted to pose, because in the 99% of cars that comply with the zero emission or the low emission, there are not it doesn't include the foreign drivers. So it's not 99%. It's if there would be a lot of foreign traffic, it's much lower.
Well, not much lower. Foreign traffic is about 4 or 5% of general traffic in Rotterdam, but a lot of those could be personal vehicles. We just don't know if they are vans, if they are personal vehicles. If they're personal vehicles, none of the access regulations apply to them. So
yeah,
worst case, it would be 98%.
Okay, thanks. I hear your message, but this would be more or less a message to be brought to the European Commission to make to harmonize rules, because I think it would be more difficult to pass through the national member organizations of our organization to reach reach this goal. I was also wondering if you consider, because I know there are other cities considering that, allowing zero emission vehicles, so awarding their efforts by allowing them to use, for instance, bus lanes and dedicated lanes in the city.
Yes, we did have this privilege for a couple of years, from I think 2020 to 2024, but they were barely used. It regarded about 127 bus lanes over the whole city, but it was barely used. But still, one of the main arteries of Rotterdam, the Schravendijkwal, there's still how do you say?
Yeah, there's a truck.
A ban on trucks because of the poor air quality on that specific street, but electric trucks are allowed, and that's enforced automatically. So they have still have a little bit of privilege left.
So the reason that I asked this was, would you recommend such measures to the colleagues of foreign cities that are attending this meeting?
Yes, but it depends on which phase of the transition you're in. If you're really stimulating the front runners, yes, absolutely. But as electric trucks become more common, about 10% of trucks in Rotterdam is now electric. It kind of, it loses its points, really, because you're allowing way too many vehicles on these bus lanes.
Thank you.
Okay, are there further questions in the room on presentation by Rotterdam? I think it's fair to conclude that Rotterdam is a front runner in that sense on developing the low emission or zero emission zone, and also providing. I think you started already 5 or 6 years ago with the first steps, so you have already something to look back on. But I see Philip's question.
Yeah, thank you, Fabian. There was one more question that popped up because Wart in his introduction said that there would not be a coherent framework for zero emission in Europe. But I think Tim mentioned that in the Netherlands we have this uniform execution agenda for urban logistics, zero emission urban logistics. So there is a framework, and I would very much recommend the other countries to look into this, because the more certainty our entrepreneurs can get about their investments, if they if they serve in different cities, the faster they will start investing in zero emission material.
Yeah, and the stronger you are against political change.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you to both of you for the presentation. And if there are no further remarks, I would go forward to the conclusion. We saw quite a diverse picture here today, but there are some common themes. One were the openness of the cities for dialogue with local stakeholders or SME stakeholders, and all cities will organize throughout the project some events or dialogues to engage with local stakeholders on the issues that were presented regarding low or zero emission zones, depending on where they are in implementing it. But I would say it's really vital to include SMEs in the process, and that also then for our members to push forward a small message towards their local subsidiaries that we are currently organizing those kind of dialogues. And the same is of course true that we will do some data collection where we try to provide a picture of the situation of SMEs on the ground in each cities. And here again, we are hoping to cooperate with you on the matter, because only if we can provide the data or a good picture for the policymakers or the local administrations, we can ensure that those regulations are implemented in the right way. And with right, I mean, of course, in an SME-friendly way. Having said that, that would be my final remark. I don't know if there are further remarks from the other partners or organizers here today. Yeah, I see one remark from Elka. I think it's Egbert.
Yeah. I'm sorry, my camera doesn't work, so I only have the voice. Egbert Roos, I'm from the European Landscape Contractors Association. So my members, they are the ones who, let's say, create and maintain private gardens, public green, indoor green, trees, etc. I thought this meeting was very, very, very interesting. And I have different takeaways from what I heard today. Something that Marij said, accessibility of a city is also a very important point. If I see, for example, in Brussels, it's very hard to find a service supplier because for them it's very hard to get into the city, to park it there, etc. So as long as you do not have that as a basic condition, then it's quite difficult to set the zero or low emission zone. And I also think about the presentation of Le Havre. I was in Nantes a few weeks ago, and I ordered the zero emission sticker that I had to glue on my car. And when I had it at home, they told me, Egbert, it's not necessary to have that sticker because the regulation is not set yet in France. So I think for our companies, it's very important to have a consistent policy. It's very important to have from national to local level consistent policy. If we're going to do this, I think it's very important that we have a certain certainty for our entrepreneurs so that they know what to do. And from the sectorial perspective, I was involved in the Netherlands when we had also this transition to the low and zero emission zones in that time for the landscape garden sector. And we said we embrace this because we want to cooperate. We want to make sure that we give the right direction to our companies so that they can decide on what this means for their working procedures, what kind of decisions they have to make in greening their corporate fleet, because you need a van that can also have some weight or can transport some weight. So it needs, let's say, the right decision to have the right van. Public procurement was mentioned. Yes, it helps the front runners to make this transition. So I think it's very good. I also feel that we on sectorial level, we can find each other in what kind of facilities do we need as a sector for our companies to make this transition? Is it about availability of electric vans? Is it about something else? How can we make this transition as well as possible? So I think there's a lot to do, and I see some very good examples. I'm very happy with the presentations today because there's a really good approach in this. And I hope that by doing this, we can achieve that the approach in every municipality will nearly be the same. As the colleagues from Rotterdam explained, all the cities in the Netherlands, they have the same approach. So for entrepreneurs, it's fine and good that they know if I go to Utrecht, I have the same sticker to glue on my front screen if I go to Rotterdam. So I think that's very important that we do this. So I'm very happy with this presentation, and I feel, let's say, the motivation on sectorial level to bring this topic further. And we also see in Brussels, we have now the initiative for greening the corporate fleets. And I think, Fabian, we must also look in how can we match the approach of municipalities to the sectorial approach that we can put in as SMEunited. Thank you.
Thank you, Egbert, for providing those, I would say, almost final thoughts on the matter. I think they were spot on. And I think we can also share the presentation. I don't know if there are any objections, but that's from the organizational side, maybe something. And if there's no further remarks, I would close this very interesting session today. And say thank you for participating. Yeah.
Thank you for organizing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye. Thank you. Bye.